Coming up on Be Kind, Let's Rewind.
Today we're talking about the legend Phil Hartman, man. His entire career.
You damn dirty ape! What have you done?
I was all about the
Pee-wee's Playhouse.
Women. Dames.
Yeah.
and that line very early on where he's just like,
Let me tell you something. There's going to be a whole bunch of things we don't tell Mrs. Clinton.
One of Phil Hartman's personal favorites, though, was Troy McClure.
Hello, I'm Troy McClure. You may remember me from such movies as Cry Yuma and Here Comes the Coast Guard.
Yeah.
he's drunk on a plane at the end, like at one of the skits, and he's just like,
Stewardess, could you give me another drink?
so they were like, sir, we're going to have to cut you off.
Listen, I'll sue you and your whole crummy airline!
4, 3, 2, 1.
Cue music.
But Frank, that's not even the whole song.
Your money's on the dresser, baby. I'm done with you.
Welcome to Be Kind, Let's Rewind, the nostalgia podcast no one asked for, with your hosts, Chris, Leaf, and Shadwick.
Yeah, I'll do a paper bag over my face. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Be Kind, Let's Rewind, the nostalgia podcast no one asked for. Today, we're talking about the legend Phil Hartman, man. His entire career. We decided, actually, Leaf, it was your idea. You were like, man, we should do an episode on Phil Hartman, and we should do an episode that doesn't focus on how he died. Like, maybe let's talk about the man's career.
You feel hard, man?
I could promise you that if you want to know about his tragic death, and it is absolutely tragic, just look up his name. All that people talk about is like how his untimely death, and like no one wants to focus on what he did for Saturday Night Live and what his life was about and his voiceover career, everything that he did. And he was an extremely talented writer and actor.
Yeah, I'm not as well versed as you guys with Phil, so I was trying to find like podcasts or anything I could listen to like during my commute or anything, and it was all just about that crazy bitch.
And it sucks, man.
Crazy bitch.
But before we get going, guys, remember to like, subscribe, hit us with that 5-star on the audiobook, and remember to come join us on Thursdays. We will be going live on YouTube at about 7. I say about 7 because we're not very punctual. So today, maybe 7:30, 8 o'clock. Yeah, you know.
At least 2/3 of us will be there.
Yeah, you know, someone will be there to do that. So, guys, where do you first remember seeing or hearing of Phil Hartman? And I think for me, the voice was from The Simpsons. I think that's honestly why, because when he was in, I think he was in SNL in 85. So that kind of would have been before I was watching, but I do remember the Lionel Hutz, and we'll get into that, you know, as we get in the episode. But that's where I remember first hearing his voice was Simpsons. Leaf, what about you?
Dude, I can tell you that he was a staple in our home. My family was a gigantic Saturday Night Live lover. I actually vaguely remember his portrayal of President Ronald Reagan.
And you don't need to understand.
And even in some of the reruns, so like there used to be Saturday Night Live reruns on television that would play, right? They would do the original cast, and I remember seeing some things about Ronald Reagan. He was the president, of course, Jimmy Carter was actually the president when I've just literally turned into the fucking crypt keeper right before my very eyes. Jimmy Carter was the president when I was born. However, I do remember Ronald Reagan as a kid and his portrayals of presidents and just various skits that he was in. I remember a lot of those, and it was one reason why when I kept thinking back when we started doing this episode, looking, it was like, why is there nothing on the stuff that he did? And it's all about his death. And I mean, we can briefly touch on that. Like, we're not going to focus on it because honestly, like, I want people to know, you know, the kind of comedian and actor that he was. I mean, his own, you know, we'll get into it, but his by his own like profession, he was like, I want to be a comedian. Like, I want to be a really famous like comedian and actor. And like he achieved that despite the fact that everybody kind of buries it. So
what about you, Shadwick? Where do you first remember seeing Phil Hartman or remember of him?
I mean, I think probably just watching like old episodes of SNL.
Yeah.
And you're right though. I think it's his voice more so than even remembering his face, because he always had that kind of, I don't know, like 1950s news radio voice. Like,
right.
He did.
Oh, these cookies! I gotta get the recipe from Les. Put that cookie down!
Banana in the tailpipe, huh?
Yeah, he did. That was so great, dude.
It's like the old like the George Reeves Superman show. Like,
yeah, oh yeah, dude, 100%. Speaking of flying away,
Get out of the street, you fucking bum!
let's keep it classy. Guys, today I finally found it. I think I showed you guys off air the Skullhead vodka.
Oh, there it is.
Good old Dan Aykroyd's vodka.
Dan Aykroyd. Speaking of Saturday Night Live, dude.
Yeah, exactly. I had to bust it out for this one. So I've got me a little vodka soda.
Have you tried it yet?
Yeah, it's vodka. It's
what do you mean, dude? It's like distilled in like Aztec diamonds or something.
Yeah,
it'll get you drunk.
Yeah, I have the palate of a peasant, not that of a king. So it tastes like especially for vodka, it just tastes. It's got the little rubbing alcohol aftertaste that we all love from vodka. Anyway, it's pretty solid though. I enjoy it. It's not as good as Heaven Hill, but it's pretty good. Shadwick, what do you got?
I am drinking coconut water. It's good for your skin.
That's not water.
that is not water. Everybody knows what you're doing. Stop.
Coconut rum, Shadwick.
Nobody knows what I'm doing.
All right.
Chris,
She don't know.
Is your kitchen sink cleaned out?
Yeah.
Just in case I need to puke in it again.
Make sure there's no more dishes in there. Leaf, what do you got, man? Bring us home.
Dude, I'm nowhere near as classy as you guys do. I'm having a little 13 Colonies gin, dude, because I love America.
God damn, I hate gin. You bitch.
You're drinking gin?
Yeah. I am, dude. And my wife made a Negroni, dude. A little sweet vermouth.
I mean, I feel for you, and my heart goes out to you.
All right.
Don't do it. Don't you fucking do it, Mitch.
What did you
Don't
make?
you tell him.
What did you make?
I made a Negroni, man. I made a Negroni.
Oh, that actually leads me over to shit stuck in my head this week.
What?
Could you just let me? Every time black people want to have a good time, some ignorant ass I take care of my kids. Just always want credit for something this do.
I need an uncensored version. Did he say it? I want to know if he said it.
I know. I want to know if he said it. So thanks for setting me up for that. I was like, how am I going to fit this one in? But
You're
it's
welcome.
a reach,
That
but
is
it's there. Dude, let's jump into it.
Was that stuck in your head because of the DEI stuff this week?
No, it was. No, yeah. I don't know why it was stuck in my head. Leaf, go ahead and kick us off with some boring ass facts here, brother.
Dude, man, Phil Hartman, guys. I mean, we could basically just talk about his early life in the boring ass facts section. Of course, we know him from the Saturday Night Live specials he was in. He was known, and we'll get more into this again too later, as the Glue, and he was a writer, actor, comedian on Saturday Night Live.
It's all sticky.
Yeah, he held it all together. And like, if you go on Saturday Night Live, like, I think a lot of people just know him from his performances, like in a lot of different sketches. Like, if you go and you watch the best of like Chris Farley, the best of Adam Sandler, some of their early stuff before Phil passed away, he's in it. Like, his performances are always like they're very, very muted because he's in the sketch, but he's not like sort of the standout. And I think that's one of his more underrated purposes in Saturday Night Live that I don't think people give him enough credit for, is you need a straight man in comedy a lot of times. And he's still in it comedically, but like his performances are a lot of times more muted in those sketches. Because, I mean, Chris Farley and some of these other characters are the stars, and he knew how to drive a lot of these people forward as a supporting actor. And of course, his voiceover work in The Simpsons, who he was just so good. They started writing more parts for him.
So I knew that he did voice work on The Simpsons, but for years, I actually thought he was Ned Flanders.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Like the voice artist for Ned Flanders did it?
Yeah.
Right? Like, I think a lot of people, honestly, a lot of people felt that. Philip Edward Hartman, born September 24th, 1948 in Brantford, Ontario, was a Canadian.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let's see.
So was Norm.
Yep.
Dude, I know some of the greats, dude, that we love, man. Actor, comedian, screenwriter, graphic designer, which I know that maybe Shabbat could speak on that. Phil attended Westchester High School in Los Angeles and later enrolled at Santa Monica College, where he studied art of all things.
And he was like a full-on graphic designer before he ever got into comedy or anything like that.
Yeah, he did some album covers.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like I'm not familiar with these bands though. Poco's.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
and
Polka Stroka.
Yeah, Polka Stroka. But you know what? I'm going to look it up.
Poco was an American. You can look up the band America. Poco was an American country rock band originally formed in 1968. I mean, I have no idea what their hits were potentially, but
it's pretty cool that he's like designing albums and stuff for people back then.
Right.
And then,
so it's just line art of a horse.
Yeah. So
you think a woman fucking a horse, and you get there, and it's a woman fucking a horse.
Kind of felt bad for the horse.
He did not draw that.
So he got into the Groundlings, right? Like that's where
Beyonce.
He did. So So I think that's important. That so he started his work as a graphic artist. After several years in the workforce, he obviously he sort of had some day jobs and things of that nature. He returned and got a degree in graphic arts from the California State University at Northridge. But that career just it left him, and I honestly feel like I can identify with this. It just it left him sort of empty. You know what I mean? And he began to entertain himself during his graphical artist. And again, I want Shabbat to speak on this. There's some boring downtime, according to him, and he would just entertain himself with funny voices, man. He would do impressions and he was trying to constantly keep himself busy because he was a talented graphic artist. He did, album covers for the band at, Poco in America, but, despite his artistic, do
you think Shadwick's doing voices in his little room downstairs, and Christy comes downstairs, and then she's she just hears him being and she just turns around and leaves.
She's like, "Not your Bobcat Goldthwait impression again."
You just do a jerk.
Yeah. So I have a funny story about how he actually joined the Groundlings. I was watching one of the many documentaries that focus on his death, and to get whatever I could out of it. And so it's
the only way you can come.
So,
anyways,
I don't know. It's not my problem. It's his.
In the mid 1970s, he did join a comedy group known as the Groundlings. Yes.
So the way he joined is he was watching them. They would do performances, and the Groundlings have produced a lot of SNL alumni over the years. Them and I think Second City's the other one. But anyway, so he's in the crowd before the show starts, and I don't know what possessed him to start doing impressions or something like that. And so the people backstage hear the crowd laughing and shit. And I think Paul Rubens came out on stage, and him and Phil Hartman started riffing off each other. And it was instant chemistry. And so after that, they did their show, and then he talked to him, and they were like, "Yeah, why don't you join up with us there, buddy?"
Dude,
and that's how he got a gig.
Well, he did I thought he did just one impromptu performance, and he was so good. They're like, "Oh, you got to join full time."
Yeah, that's what it was. I mean, they still do their little classes and whatnot, but yeah, they were like, "Hey, come on." Like
I
I
just
bet
want
it was,
to.
it was after he just went up there and was just kind of off the cuff.
Yeah,
So
I just
anytime you go see any performance, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you do that.
Yeah, make sure
before-
you interrupt the stage performance to like go there and do your shtick you've been practicing in your closet for a week and a half. Because please, while we're there, preferably like 5 or 6 beers in.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and Phil Hartman did it though, and like despite how you would imagine it would go, he was insanely good. Imagine you just go up in the middle of a comedy sketch, do your act, do your gig. You're riffing off with Paul Rubens, who we'll get into. If you don't know who that is, we'll get into that in a minute. And it's just amazing.
I'm glad he was riffing off with him.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Where's
it's like
my wiener?
and you're so good. You're so good. They ask you to join the group. They're
Dude,
just
I
like,
know.
yeah, you guys need to be.
Here's how that ends for other people in that scenario. There's 2 ways. They ask you to join, which is everybody's fantasy and thinks that way it works out, or they call the fucking cops. Those are your 2. That's the 2 options in that scenario.
And your
They're
shirt
like,
is
"Get this
off,
fucking
and you're
dude out of it."
and you're yelling. I thought this was America.
Isn't this America? I'm sorry, I thought this was America.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
hello.
You're Randy Marsh being arrested by the cops. That's
Can't be a
what
doctor.
it ends up being. Yeah. But so the Groundlings is actually where he met Paul Rubens, which I don't know if this is like a Mandela effect or whatever. I swear to God it was Paul Rubin, and I wasn't aware that he was a plural. And I don't understand.
I'm with you.
Like I always remember Paul Rubin, not Rubens.
I will third that. Like, because
Okay.
in my research, I'm like, I remember typing in Paul Rubin to do more research, and I was coming up. It's like Paul Rubens, and I'm like, no, it's Rubin. Dummy.
No, it's Rubin, you idiot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no,
Idiot.
I remember. I remember seeing it in print in one of the Berenstein Bear books.
I do remember that. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
because I read it in a ridiculous Jewish accent, as I did all those books.
Oh, David. All right, so
Phil Hartman's work with the Groundlings.
Thank you.
Phil Hartman's work with the Groundlings earned him recognition for his talent and, of course, impressions. He learned and advanced his skills in comedic writing and character creation with this comedy group. And while with the Groundlings, of course, he did, as we've mentioned already, Paul began to collaborate and work with Paul Rubens, who immediately clicked with, who, if you don't know, ladies and gentlemen, this man was Pee Wee Herman.
Pee Wee Herman, yeah.
Pee Wee Herman, yes. And they developed a lot of
That's pretty good.
It's pretty
It's
good.
fucking good, dude.
Pretty fucking good, dude.
You've been practicing in that theater on Rossville Boulevard.
Dude, I can't fucking wait. I can't wait till the next stand-up comedy show I go to. I'm just going to go on stage and be like, this is my impression of Pee Wee Herman, just like one joke.
And then you just like walk off, be like, you guys should subscribe, like as I carry you off. Be like, let's rewind. Just say, like, hold on, we got a podcast. No, please.
And then you're
trying to look.
Then you're like,
God damn it.
Then you're like Danny DeVito's Penguins. Like, why does everybody bring like tomatoes and shit?
Exactly, dude. But what a lot of people don't know is if you remember the Pee Wee Herman show, Pee Wee's Playhouse, like that show was created in part by Phil Hartman.
So that's where the mindfuck starts with me on
Yes.
Pee Wee's. I want to do it, obviously, episodes on Pee Wee and the Large Marge scarring of my childhood. But I didn't realize Pee Wee's Playhouse was
make me come, or I'm going to kick your butt.
That is not
as Orgasmo.
It was Orgasmo. We'll do that. We'll do that one.
Basically the same thing. Actually, maybe I'll put that voiceover over Large Marge. Probably works. But I thought that Pee Wee's Playhouse was a show, then a movie, and I didn't realize it was a stage show, then a movie directed by Tim Burton, then the TV show.
Same.
I didn't know it was a stage show. I did know it was a movie first.
You did. Yeah.
But
Chris and I both were confused because I agree with Chris.
But do we know what year Pee Wee's Big Adventure came out?
I do. 1985.
Okay. So I saw that the one and only time I saw it was when it released on VHS, and I'm with you, Chris. There was something disturbing about it, and I never watched it again.
Yep.
So I really need to go back and watch that as an adult because I'm sure it's probably pretty damn good.
Dude, we just might as well just jump into it next week. We should just do Pee-wee's Big Adventure next week. Just fuck it.
Let's do it.
Let's rip the band off.
I'm 100%.
The only thing I remember about that was the little dance.
Yeah.
Yeah, the dance. No, I could tell you, like, well, you know, I'm ready for it. My sister and I loved Pee-wee's Big Adventure, and you know, we would quote it all the time. Like, she thought it was one of the funniest movies ever, and I looked up to my sister. She's 7-8 years older than I am, and dude, like, she was my hero when I was a kid. If she said something was cool, like, it was cool.
Then it was cool.
And she loved it, and I watched it religiously with her constantly, often. And so it was
She's
one of
7 or
our
8 years
go-to.
older than you.
She is, yeah.
Doesn't show.
Yeah.
So Pee-wee's Big Adventure before that was a live show called The Pee-wee Herman Show, co-written and created, of course, by none other than Phil Hartman. And it's a show in which not only did he co-wrote and create the characters, and he would reprise the role of Captain Carl.
Women! Dames! Women!
Yeah.
Was, and you could find all of the you can find
Carl.
Women.
Yeah.
Dames. I just want to say
I live on land.
We're going to talk about it later on in this episode, but Captain Carl is legitimately just an impression, but it is Charlton Heston. What it is.
Yeah,
it is.
okay.
It is 100% his version
of
Charlton, or what would be his impression of Charlton Heston.
Senator, I'll be blunt. You don't have a snowball's chance in Hades of winning this election.
But it's crazy. I'll have clips throughout this that YouTube won't like, but like as we celebrate this man's life.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to say it because it's just stuck in my head now. When you said that, it made me think of that the skit with Norm as Bob Dole, and he comes in as Charlton Heston, and it's at the end when it's supposed to be Matt LeBlanc coming in with the monkey. He's like,
You damn dirty ape! What have you done?
It's so funny every single time. And I'm going to talk about it later because I have a really fucking gigantic big beef. And maybe after we record this, Chris could find the sketch because you cannot find it. And I don't understand why you cannot find the sketch that I want. But there's sketches like that where he's just a standout character and you just don't exist because
you better hurry. We've got 17 minutes before you go live.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, the Captain Carl, man, that was I remember obviously that from the show, but it's crazy to me. This dude's a graphic designer. He's designing, whatever graphics, and then he's just all of a sudden, hey, I'm gonna do stand-up comedy or improv comedy for 10 years, co-write a fucking movie in the middle of this that gets picked up by Hollywood, and then go on to do like all this shit. Like it's like he wanted to do something, and he's like, "Yeah, I'll do that. That's fine."
I'm gonna do.
I wonder if he got as fucking irritated as I do when someone would said, "Just Photoshop it."
Yeah, enhance.
That's not a verb.
I'm not sure there was photoshopping in the 70s and early 80s.
Yeah, just enhance. Enhance.
Just enhance.
Enhance that image.
Yeah, that's not how it works.
Yeah. And so he, with his portrayals and all of his work, and of course working with the Groundlings, it did lead him to working with Paul Rubens at Pee-wee's Playhouse. He in 1985 he would go on with Paul Rubens to write the script.
That doesn't sound right.
And
I know.
the character for Pee-wee's Big Adventure, a movie that Be Kind, Let's Rewind will cover, a feature-length film, which later led to the popular children's show Pee-wee's Playhouse, which I'm with Chris. I don't actually remember this being first. It was like
because we saw this in theaters. We saw this. I want to say we saw this in theaters together.
We had to have because it was a kids show.
But I remember
movie.
Like I was all about the Pee-wee's Playhouse.
Dude,
like
That's the chick. That's a chick from Last Dragon, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
chick from the Last Dragon.
I just want to lay this out because I know we've been like all over the map. I just want to lay this out though. So first came a stage show with Pee-wee Herman, obviously written and co-written and created by Phil Hartman. And so, but it was almost adult oriented. It was it was really, really strange. So if you go back and you watch the clips, you get the distinct, like Pee Wee Herman is sort of this like innocent character, right?
Yeah, he's basically like 10 years old in an adult body. Is basically
and an adult body, exactly.
He's Michael Jackson.
That's yes. It's allegedly. But what you get though when Captain Carl comes on the scene, played by Phil Hartman, is obviously he's this like obviously, you know, he is a captain, a pirate, whatever you want to call it, right? And he is this gruff character, and he ends up influencing Pee-wee to kind of like do nefarious things. And what's brilliant about the show is everything is borderline. It's adult oriented. It's got adult oriented themes, and you see this later on in themes like in movies like Pixar films, where you have, and that's the first time I'd ever seen it. And going back and look at this footage, it was like Pee-wee was this innocent character, but like Captain Carl and some of these other characters are kind of making these adult oriented jokes, and everyone is laughing, but it's still Pee-wee's still like, I don't get it, you know, I'm this like, it was a brilliant piece of work.
Maybe Captain Carl was like a metaphor for just Hollywood in general.
Yeah, probably.
But I mean, just corrupting young innocent souls.
For it to be as popular as it was as a stage show, so this means that they were just doing Pee-wee like sketches and shit all the time. And actually, after the Paul Rubens fiasco later on, they actually went back later and did a live show again on HBO that was adult oriented. You can find that's kind of interesting, mainly because Charlie's mom from Always Sunny in Philadelphia is Miss Yvonne.
It's crap, pure unadulterated crap.
So that always weirds me out. That's who it was in the TV show too.
That's so freaking cool, dude. And I want to mention that before we go to the movie, because again, we'll touch on it lightly because this is not about the movie, but they do go on. Like the show was first, the live stage show they were doing, which was sort of akin to the Groundlings and some of the sketch comedy they were doing. And they were using Pee-wee's Playhouse the Pee Wee Herman show as sort of a ground level to like do a lot of sketches and things.
But this stuff was big in LA, like during the 70s and 80s, this stage comedy troupe shit. Like it was big in New York and big in LA, and Lorne Michaels just fucking sniped the best of the best off of this. He did. Put him on his show.
It wasn't long after Pee-wee's Big Adventure, the movie, came out, and of course which was a huge hit. I'm not even going to quote it because we're going to cover it later, but it was made for very little money, made a massive amount of money, led to the Pee-wee's Playhouse, which we all remember if you're kids. And at some point in time, there was a fallout between Phil Hartman and Paul Rubens. I looked into that. Neither of them really will say what happened, but it was something along the lines of creative differences. They just didn't.
I think there may have been some financial things. I did see a Letterman interview where I think that there was. Again, Phil never was like burying somebody in interviews and shit.
He was a class, and so was Paul Rubens for his part. Like he never derided Phil Hartman, and even said that like before Phil Hartman even passed away, was like noted for being like, I miss him, like miss working with him. Like he was such a good like artist and person, to work with. So
let's jump over, man. So
Paul Rubens dead now too, right?
He
died last year, 2 years ago.
Yep,
he's dead now.
He's dead now. So let's jump over, man. So in SNL, a little background on this. This, if I'm not mistaken, this was the first cast for Lorne Michaels' return. So
really,
so did you say 85 he was on SNL?
Yeah.
Yes.
85,
86. It was I have 86, but it was during the time that he left Pee-wee's Playhouse, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, all that was happening. Then. He left, and then so
he must have been on there for quite a while then.
8 or 9 years. But most of them, like in that book I'm reading, it's most people like shoot for 7 years on SNL. Like that's apparently like the number.
Well, because Clinton didn't take office until 92.
Right.
And
so like,
and then I don't know how far into his
he got, I want to say he was 94.
94
he left. So he was there 2 years for Clinton. But
So the Monica Lewinsky thing happened within the first 2 years of his presidency?
No, that was what you watched.
No.
That clip from Jay Leno. He just reprised it for Jay Leno
because he did do Bill Clinton. He did do.
It may have actually been when he came back for he hosted a couple of times, I think.
Yes.
After he left, so it may have been like because they're Jay Leno and SNL are in the same studio, but like. So anyway, Lorne, Dick Ebersol, like still a giant over at NBC, was the one that was running SNL. Who
Giant Dick,
who got Eddie Murphy and was just like, "Hey, go Eddie Murphy the fuck out of the show." Eddie saved SNL because it was taking a dive after Lorne left. Absolutely. Then Lorne came back in '85 or '86 and just wiped basically the whole cast out and brought in new people. And so this was, Phil Hartman was part of that new cast that got brought in. Mm-hmm. So this was kind of the resurgence of SNL, which also shout out to whoever made this SNL best of for Phil Hartman. Fuck you, man. Like, dude. Jesus Christ.
Guys,
shout out.
If you can find it, don't. Like, don't watch it, dude. It sucks, man. Like, I have a really big problem with the best of Phil Hartman, like SNL special.
They took all of his good shit and clipped it. Like, it's just because his impressions were like mainly like what he was. I mean, obviously like a fantastic writer and smart guy, but his impressions really set him apart. And so like they just took and just did this montage of all his clips, and then they had 4 hours of shit that I didn't care about. Except so for bad. I mean the Sinatra thing, which one
of my favorite ones was when he was Frankenstein.
Yes,
and just because he breaks character,
because it's so fucking ridiculous. Like so, I want to go over. I reached out to some friends, and I want us to kind of go over. I have some lists of some of the stuff that he did. So. Also side note too, like one of his ex-wives, I think he's married 3 times. One of his ex-wives said that he was also a fantastic dancer apparently too. So I'm like, Jesus Christ, like this dude's like sharp looking guy, can do all these impressions, artists, like, and then he can dance on top of it. I was like, fuck you, man. Like, gave you a little too much. Mm-hmm. But so I reached out to a couple people to see like what their favorite was. And our boy Josh said that Frank Sinatra is what he always thinks of when he thinks of Phil Hartman.
Issue number 3, the bald chick. What's with her head?
And in that SNL book, they talk about the Sinatra family was none too pleased with this impression of Frank Sinatra. But dude, which makes it even funnier to me now too. Yeah. But God bless. Because they were doing that McLaughlin group shit, which none of us remember and none of us watched.
No,
because it's a parody. It was like a Around the Horn discussion show, right? And so they parody it with Frank Sinatra.
You don't scare me. I got chunks of guys like you in my stool.
And Jesus Christ,
it is absolutely one of the funniest
chunks of you in my stool.
I want to say this.
Milli Vanilli.
This is one of the biggest tragedies I've ever seen in the history of in Phil Hartman, because there was another version he did of this.
Yes.
And when I tell you it was 10 times funnier, and so let me set the stage. Frank Sinatra, before he passed away, did a compilation of his songs, and he called it Duets. You could still find it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was Frank Sinatra with a lot of the new stars at the time.
Frank, that was great. A real beauty.
Let's keep it moving, Steve. Who's next?
Good. We got Bono from U2.
Right? Like it was sort of one of his comeback things where he did a lot of performances with a lot of, newer performances. And it was called Duets.
He tried it with Taylor Swift. He's like, this dame can't sing.
Dude, what I tell you. So Phil Hartman penned a sketch with a bunch of different people, and it was literally the duets, and it was all of these stars, like, and people's impressions of them. Mm-hmm. You cannot find this sketch anywhere. And what's weird is I remember being able to find it on YouTube, but slowly and surely it's been erased. I couldn't find it at all this last time doing my research.
And that's weird. Like, I'm going to go through the NBC catalog soon.
Please.
I got to start. I've been having to like rip clips and shit we use like the old-fashioned way from my DVDs and stuff, because YouTube and other places are taking a lot of those clips out.
They're censoring them or deleting them. I don't understand.
Yeah, I don't understand why, but it's happening, man.
Okay, cut it, print it, and ship it. I'm buying that one.
But
So
guys,
the Sinatra one.
So they erased that from history and add an S onto Reuben.
Onto Reuben's, yes. This timeline sucks. Can we go back to the other one?
Yeah, I like that one better.
I bet we're
I had
Saturday
way-
Night Live famous actors that can dance really well. Well, not
I
you,
know.
Leaf, but like me and Chadwick, we're dancing.
you know, you do what you can do.
Nah.
Yes, right.
I bet that tastes good.
Over and over again. This has become my new favorite game, is doing it when it doesn't make sense because it really bothers Leaf.
It's just like,
like,
why
there's
did
no
that
place.
play right there, dude?
It doesn't
Like-
work. So
Bro.
Chadwick, you talked about one of your favorites was the Frankenstein. And that was one that we used to quote all the time back in the day at the movie theater.
Frankenstein.
When SNL was on syndication on Comedy Central, and we'd watch
Constantly.
it. But like, it's one of those sketches. We talk about it a lot on here. Laughter being infectious.
Yeah.
He breaks, and him breaking the skit is fucking stupid. Also, shout
it's
out
awful.
John Lovitz for his fucking Indian impression where he keeps saying Kimosabi.
Tonto?
Bread good, Kimosabi.
Tonto.
And Kevin Nealon just trying his best to show us his balls.
Yeah, no, you can just barely see. I can see like the tip of the left nut sneaking out, but
Splayed open
dude,
purposefully.
but John Lovitz like started
Splayed.
cracking me up.
That's such a
This-
dirty, disgusting word,
It is.
splayed.
But like John Lovitz, man, I was like, because I mean, I knew the punchline. I'd already seen it 1,000 times, but I forgot for some reason about him and his terrible deadpan fucking Native American accent or whatever it was.
And they had a bunch of these sketches, not just
Yeah,
that one,
dude.
and he would always reprise. It was John Lovitz, Kevin Nealon, yes, and Phil Hartman. Every
And
time.
the whole premise of the skit is they're going to get to fire, and then the only line really that like Phil Hartman says is "fire bad," and
Because
you know,
he's
because
Frankenstein.
Frankenstein's afraid of fire.
So
He isn't
you,
like
you
fire.
guys remember probably like right around the year 2000. It was a website called Camp Chaos, and they had these little animations, and one of them was making fun of Metallica suing Napster.
No.
And yeah, so like it's all animated, and Lars is just like this squirmy little toady thing. He's like crawling around and like sticking to walls and stuff,
Yeah, just like in
and
real
running
life.
his mouth the whole time.
Yeah.
And James Hetfield is in the background, and he's got the two little things sticking out of his
Oh,
neck.
so he's like
and
Frankenstein.
and he just keeps going.
Beer, good.
So I didn't remember that sketch until I watched it.
Yeah.
You know, getting ready for this episode, but they totally ripped that
Oh,
off.
they ripped that off.
Oh yeah,
100%.
100%. Yeah, Phil
But
Hartman
like
like
the
special.
best, like the most endearing part of this is Phil Hartman and all of his like genius and comedic timing realizes like in the midst of this sketch how fucking dumb, and it's tanking, right? The sketch is not doing well. Like
People
no one's
aren't
really
laughing at all.
They're not laughing
I'm
very
laughing.
much.
I'm
And then
laughing
it-
because it's bombing.
Right.
Like,
And
that's
then he's just
great.
like, he's finally like, fire bad. And then he starts like losing it, and he can't get fire bad out. And then they start laughing, and then the audience starts laughing. It's the only thing that saves a sketch. And that's probably why it continued, is just, it was, and I remember him breaking almost every time he did this one, I thought. Like,
Yeah.
it's just dumb, but it's
Yeah.
so freaking funny, man. So, I mean, that was like one of Shadwick's favorite. Leaf, like, what's one of your favorites that you can remember?
Okay, so of all the Phil Hartman impressions on Saturday Night Live, and he did a lot. Again, like just to go over them very, very briefly before I give my favorite, he did Ronald Reagan. He did Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton's parody about
the
him
Bill
going to
Clinton.
McDonald's.
Dude,
Yeah.
where he's like,
Your McNugget is released from Great Britain to Somalia, intercepted by warlords.
And he's
Such
just
a big
he keeps
story.
like picking up food off everybody's
Yeah.
plate.
Yeah, yeah.
and that line very early on where he's just like,
Jim, let me tell you something. There's going to be a whole bunch of things we don't tell Mrs. Clinton.
ahead of his time.
Oh, look,
ladies and
it's the
gentlemen.
first bitch.
yep.
Hey, wait for me, bitch.
Yep.
I just want to say his Burt Reynolds impression. I'm sorry,
dude. It was good.
Burt, tall as the day is long. They don't come any bigger.
Just give me a damn pen.
It was fucking fantastic, dude. And like when Norm Macdonald did it, it was reticent of.
Yep, it was.
It reminded me of Phil Hartman. He did it first, man.
Like his makeup, the way his face was, he looked a lot like Burt Reynolds, like with the makeup and everything that they put on him. Like that was pretty solid.
They did a really good job of a lot of his impressions. Again, he did, and a lot of you probably won't remember some of these impressions. Again, he did Ronald Reagan. He did Bill Clinton. He did Phil Donahue. Excellent, excellent
impression. Shitty fucking sketch. The one that they put on the. I know he did a lot of those, and some of those were funny. But like the Donahue they put on there was not very good. Like again. Shout out whoever did this. You was bad at your job.
Was it Ed McMahon that was with Johnny Carson?
Yes, he did.
Yeah,
he did that one where he was just like, "It's the last show, and Ed is drunk."
You are correct, sir. Yes.
Chris and I used to quote that all the time,
dude.
Like anytime you say anything, Chris agree with it in the theater, he'd be like, "Yes, you are correct.
Yes, sir. You are correct, sir.
Yes, great
dude.
one."
He did a absolutely hilarious impression. You can't find it. I'm sorry about this. You guys can't. You guys are not going to ever be able to probably find these. If you do, good on you. He did a hilarious impression of Bing Crosby.
Well, a dad's not a dad who doesn't do his dadly duty.
It was so funny, dude. Like I found
I don't remember that one.
And there's a snippet. There's a snippet of it in this best of DVD, but it's like 10 seconds of him doing Bing Crosby.
I hate when they do those compilations on those because there's no context. You don't even know what character they're
it's
trying to portray.
It's a DVD, man. You have all the space in the world to put all that shit. You own it all. Like, don't like smush it down to fucking what is it like? What was it? An hour and 15?
Snooky won't smush mush.
Yeah. Basically, an hour and 30. And it was like, he does an impression of Johnny Cash.
Hi, I'm Johnny Cash, and I'm a gratefully recovering alcoholic and drug addict.
That's like hilarious. He starts laughing in the middle of that one, by the way, too.
Yeah,
like is a really funny
dude. His Matlock. Like,
yes,
was
Matlock was so good.
Your Honor, I don't know spit about lawyering.
And his face, his facials that he's doing during that Matlock was God bless. And again, like I'll try to piece all these in here so you guys can see at least a clip of them. But Jesus Christ, his Matlock took me off guard because I was like, I don't remember him doing Matlock. And when he started talking, I was like, that was one that I like busted out laughing like on the couch. Like I was like, oh my God, like
It was really, really, really good. He did so many fucking great impressions. Peter Graves, for those of you who remember, like most of you won't remember it, but what's ironic, I wouldn't remember him either, except for the fact that he was in Airplane, of course.
Yeah.
Like he was the captain, Peter Graves. He was a huge star back a long time ago. I was lucky enough to watch Mr. Science Theater 3K. There's a lot of Peter Graves films. His impression of Peter Graves is so freaking good, and there's a sketch in this compilation that you can find.
Hello, I'm Peter Graves.
It's crazy, like when you start like going down the list. Now, again, he was there for 8 years. But like as you're talking about him being the glue, by the time like he was at the end of SNL, he was really like he had it down, and he was just like you go back and look at the list of impressions we're going over. I do have to shout out. Obviously, our friend Gibbs, I was like, Phil Hartman, bro, what do you think of? And he said, Caveman Lawyer.
Your world frightens and confuses me.
Which that fucking skit is so ridiculous. And that makeup had to suck to put on too. Like
he doesn't even look like himself.
It's not one of my favorites for sure.
Dude, I love it. And when there's actually on this one, this is one that I hadn't seen. He goes through the whole, like, he's talking in the Phil Hartman voice, but he's like, your world frightens and confuses me. Like, you know, he's like well-spoken, and he's just leaning into like that he's this, you should feel bad for him because he's a caveman lawyer.
He's using it as a crutch.
He's drunk on a plane at the end, like at one of the skits, and he's just like,
Stewardess, could you give me another drink?
So they were like, sir, we're going to have to cut you off.
Listen, I'll sue you and your whole crummy airline!
He's like, but I'm scared.
Like, you can't You can't fire me for being bad at my job. I'm not equal.
Yeah, like he was literally that sketch had its moments, but it was literally like a caveman lawyer like using his caveman excuse to like get away with murder.
And it's this is one that I think was good to have a cutaway because it's just a quick joke, and I didn't even know that was him playing when they do that steroid Olympics thing where
he rips his arms off.
He rips his arms off.
Oh, he's pulled his arms off. He's pulled his arms off. That's got to be disappointing to the big Russian.
Deadlift.
My wife does not. Full disclosure, my wife does not like gruesome, gory violence. And I was doing the research, and she turned around. I was watching, and when his arms tear off, she's like, "Ugh!" And I'm like, that made it so much funnier. I was in tears.
I've got to say, most of the time when they do something like that, it's just like an opening with like stuff squirting out.
Right.
This had like shit like hanging out of it.
And they both,
so violent.
They both like rip off. Like,
yeah,
he rips both arms off because he's juiced on steroids.
His face is like he's like.
All right, so him making faces. Back to the Jay Leno thing where he's portraying Bill Clinton. I don't know if you can cut it in or not, but so Jay Leno's hosting the Tonight Show.
Yeah.
He prompts it by saying we're going to go live to the president, and you think he's actually going to go to Bill Clinton,
right.
But he cuts to Phil, and he's got like a babe on each side of him.
Yeah,
a blonde and a brunette. The brunette's smoking hot, by the way. I like them curves.
Jokes like I like those,
but
I like that.
But he keeps doing this thing where he's like partying and laughing real hard, and then like Jay brings him back into it, and he like snaps back, and he's like his eyes are going back and forth.
Yeah.
Dude, it's so funny.
He was just so great at all that stuff. So much so.
And Jay says, I want to hear it straight from the horse's mouth. And he goes, I'd like to help you out, but Monica's back in California.
Yeah, bring back that comedy.
Dude, he didn't give a shit, dude. It was
zero
perfect.
fucks given. Bring it back, man.
Before we move on, I don't want to move on because I didn't get my favorite, dude. My favorite impression, dude, because Chadwick's right, like his impressions and his facial expressions. I'm sorry, you guys got to go back, and this might take some research for you guys to understand. His impression of Jimmy Swaggart.
We have repented, and we need their emotional and financial support now more than ever.
Was one of the funniest things I have ever seen.
Yeah, I couldn't find that one either.
That one was incredible, especially if you like followed the whole like the televangelist was big, and Jimmy Swaggart was like one of the top tier, always crying during his like sermons and stuff.
Fucking
and then he gets busted with like, what did he get busted with, prostitutes or something?
The real Reverend Jimmy Swaggart became famous for his like apology to his mega church group at the Assemblies of God because he was suspended because of there was financial impropriety like happening, like evidently he was like stealing money, and later on there was a prostitution scandal. And like he basically, so this mega church pastor, which I don't know why it's still not me.
I mean, Jesus hung out with a prostitute.
Yeah,
true.
Yeah, but
he just didn't bang him.
But he didn't just bang him. And
sure he didn't.
And he's so
the dude could turn water into wine. You think he couldn't clear up a case of he couldn't clear up a case of syphilis? He couldn't clear up a case of syphilis.
Yeah. Done.
I'm clean. You're still dirty. You dirty whore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so Jimmy Swaggart comes on, and he's in tears, and he's apologizing to his congregation, and he's disgraced because it's all coming out in the wash. And I mean, like, dude's wearing glasses, and it's like tears are like streaming down his eyes, up. and he's like gasping for, he's like, I have sinned, and he's like crying. And so Phil Hartman does an impression.
Yeah.
It is It will destroy you if you remember this day and age.
Was
It's
Swaggerty? Was Jimmy Swaggerty, or was Swaggerty or Swaggart?
Jimmy Swaggart.
Was he the one that they did the farting preacher from?
No, that's a different dude. But
Or that,
yeah,
was
but
that Robert Tilton?
Yeah,
maybe?
that's who that was.
Yeah.
It
was
but
Robert
it's in the same zip code as far as the televangelists.
Yeah,
But yeah, he takes that, and I think they even did the special effects where like water streaming off of his face while he's doing it when Phil Hartman's doing it.
Yeah,
So it looks like
it's
he's like it looks like he's just like,
and you
he's
can't
like
hardly-
Chadwick working out.
You literally can't hardly find the
I
sketch
can't
anywhere,
remember.
and it's so funny because he's doing his whole diatribe. He was even on the church lady. Y'all remember the church
Yeah,
lady?
dude,
With
yes.
I know Chris does.
It-
Like our
Dana Carvey.
moms.
Isn't that special?
Yeah, like he came on the church lady, and he has like Tammy Faye with him, and she's got her makeup is running because she's
Yeah.
already starting to cry. Dude,
And I forgot
it's-
who did her, but she was great too. I forgot that that actress.
that
was on
actress's
SNL.
name. Yeah, we'll put it up there, maybe. But dude,
All right, so I got to take it down for a minute. I've got a take that you guys are probably not going to like, but
all right.
there was something that irked me a little bit about him, and it looked like he had either sadness or despair or maybe a little bit of evil in his eyes, and it really gave me like a Kevin Spacey vibe.
I can see that. So everything that when I did my research, he was very reserved, and he apparently was like super non-confrontational. So this dude, if something was like wrong or whatever, he would just try to avoid it as best he could. So the sadness you're talking about may be like a lot of that unresolved, buried deep.
Yeah.
Is because that checks a box. I don't think he'd, I don't think.
No, I'm not accusing him of doing anything. I'm just saying, I just kind of got that weird kind of uncomfortable vibe from him.
Yeah, no, I get it. And I think that I think that had a lot to do with it because he had trouble in relationships a lot of times. Apparently,
His relationship.
What kind of problems did he have with his relationship?
Well,
I mean, even
whereas
before
they do fuck the best, the crazy ones are probably not the ones that you should marry.
No, he learned that firsthand.
Yes, sir, you are correct, sir.
Correct.
He was at least thrice divorced, so I know that there was a lot of marital and relationship strife in his life, and there's no doubt some of that leaked into his writing and probably his performances as well. Like when things were not as good, as we all know, if you're as a man, like your lady can absolutely change your entire demeanor
that's
for
very true.
days, even weeks at a time, if she so decides.
Yeah, I was actually talking about this at work today. A guy was talking about how when he met his wife, like she kind of helped pull him out of
the funk.
Exactly.
And yeah, it can go both ways.
It goes both ways. Exactly.
I've got a great one now, and I don't feel like walking around and punching holes in walls anymore.
Right.
Also, you don't have time to do it.
Yeah,
so let's I don't, the skit's funny to me because how long it takes to get the joke. The anal retentive chef is it's funny once you
me.
like. Yeah,
that's
definitely.
That's why it's so funny to me, because I'll get pissed at everybody else in the house while I'm trying to cook because they've left something in the sink.
Yeah, it goes on forever. Every time they did this skit, it would go on forever, and it's just these little quirks. But I kind of appreciated I think Norm's kind of opened us up a lot to the Joker's joke, where it's the art of like making people wait for a punchline is pretty funny sometimes. And so, he was so popular, man, in SNL. NBC they were working on the Phil Hartman show. He was going to have his own show. He was leaving SNL. They had signed him to a deal. They structured the whole thing. And then it just, the news radio stuff came up. And then he ended up going to news radio instead of having like the Phil Hartman
Wasn't
show.
he also working on a live action version of his character from The Simpsons?
Oh, I didn't know about that.
I actually can tell you that. No, I actually can tell you about that.
Okay.
If you want to, before we go to news radio, we could probably take a quick detour.
Well, I don't want to like talk a ton about news radio. I didn't watch, full disclosure, never really watched news radio. I don't think any of us did.
I did not either. It was a television show with Andy Dick.
Yeah, that's wacky.
And Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
And Joe Rogan.
And Joe Rogan. Yeah. So there
Sponsor
were
our podcast.
Dude, I want to say right now, when one of us finally go, or all three of us go on the Joe Rogan podcast, it's going to happen, ladies and gentlemen, one day. And I want to ask him. I literally want to ask about Phil Hartman. Like, I want to be like, what do you know about Phil Hartman?
When we go on Joe Rogan, when he starts into something, I'm sure Leaf and I are both going to be like, we've already heard the story. We listen to your show. We've heard it.
We've heard
all the time. We know. We already
like,
know.
Yeah, the stuff that I saw with him.
Yeah. You're on an airplane with Norm. I know. Yeah. He smoked when he got off. Yeah.
So, but yeah, when I was, or like when he was talking about him, of course, the episode was about his untimely death. So, like, I was like, I kind of want to know, like, what it was like working with him. Like, how was he as a dude? Like, you know,
I do too. I feel like this is this is why I want to do this episode, because it's like we're talking about a lot of the fun things. We haven't mentioned too much about, again, his tragic death. You don't, like, if you want to know about it, you guys can Google it. Like, it will literally,
all you got to do is
comes up.
Type in Phil HAR, and then it'll just be like tragic death.
Tragic death.
Because Leaf, take us over to the Simpsons and some voiceover work, man.
In this is one of the
what would he know about voiceover work?
in 1989, Hartman began lending his voice to various background characters on the hit animated series The Simpsons, and of course became a fan favorite with his recurring roles, which obviously the Simpsons staff began to write for him, because not only, as Chris said, he was non-confrontational. Let me just tell you this, in the voice acting, voiceover world, that's the person you want to work with, my guys.
Yeah.
There are so many people that voice actors that think they're they're Brad fucking Pitt from Fight Club, our last episode, dude. They legitimately think they're the best of the best of the best, and they're superstars. You want to work with somebody who is humble, who is fun, who's just there out to have a good time. Phil Hartman was this guy, and
he's laughing. He's having a good time.
Dude, There's a Simpsons clip where Krusty was going in. Elisa was trying to do a voiceover for the for a new Malibu Stacy doll, and then they were like, "Hey, you got to hurry up. So we got someone else coming in." And Krusty reads like 6 lines in a row, throws the cards down, and leaves. And it pans to the studio, and they're just changing the reel. They're like, "All right, we're ready for you, Krusty." So that's what you don't want in the studio.
That's literally what it's like. There are actors that are that way, like less and less as technology becomes more advanced and more people like me can like worm our way into like the scene, because you're able to get really good performances. But yeah, you don't want that kind of person. Phil Hartman was not that person. Phil Hartman was the one you wanted to work with. He actually was conscripted originally just to work as bit parts and things on The Simpsons. Everyone loved him so much that they wrote multiple scripts for his characters.
Multiple characters.
Was he there at the same time Conan was doing writing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And Conan, I've seen
Phil did some writing. Phil did a little bit of writing too.
He did.
Oh yeah,
he did.
What was it? Marge versus the monorail, I think, was the episode that he wrote.
I think didn't
he voice the main character in that?
He voices the character that sings the monorail
That's
song,
right, yeah.
Which is yet again this. Okay, let's add another skill to Phil Hartman's like repertoire.
Yeah,
he could sing. It was insane. Like, he sings the monorail song, which you could look up. Just type in on YouTube "monorail song," like on.
And then
Simpsons.
it's like, did you mean Phil Hartman's gruesome death?
I could
Google.
Oh, Google.
Oh, Google. No,
I could see him doing like some crooning stuff though.
Oh, dude, hell yeah!
Oh, he was so freaking good, dude. Like, he didn't just play
Tony Bennett, you know.
Oh, dude, Bing Crosby.
I think they said they wrote Lionel Hutz for him, and because they saw him on SNL and they brought him in, and then once he did that, then it was just like you're talking about, easy to work with. And
it was easy to work with.
Okay, let's.
Lionel Hutz, if y'all don't remember, was one of his characters. He was an incompetent and Shady Lawyer on The Simpsons. Anytime there was a legal issue, they would bring in Lionel Hutz, and it was always hilarious. He is in multiple sketches, and I just want to tell you right now, Phil Hartman kills every single one of those sketches, and the people in the booth said so, even to the point that Matt Groening said that he took Phil Hartman for granted when he was alive because he would absolutely nail whatever joke there was in The Simpsons. In The Simpsons, the idea of the joke, the tone, the demeanor,
the inflection, and everything.
Yeah, the inflection.
There's a lot to it, man.
There's a lot to it. You have it in your mind, and you think to yourself, I have this idea of this character. Phil Hartman would nail the ideal every single time. Like, he would bring them in, which led to multiple characters that he would voice. Lionel Hutz, potentially one of the first ones. Again, an incompetent, shady lawyer. And one of Phil Hartman's personal favorites, though, was Troy McClure.
Hello, I'm Troy McClure. You may remember me from such movies as Cry Yuma and Here Comes the Coast Guard.
You may remember me from such films as,
yes,
that shit every time.
He played this character as this egotistical, washed up, famous actor. And he would always introduce himself, like Chris said, as, "Hi, I'm Troy McClure. You may remember me from such films." And it was like he was a once famous actor on The Simpsons. Right. You never seen him do anything in The Simpsons, but you've seen it a million times. And actors are at their top, and then they come down, and they're no longer the best they can be. They take gigs they can get, and that was the idea of Troy McClure. And Phil Hartman absolutely loved
Wasn't there an episode where he married Patty or Selma as Troy McClure?
There was one where he was trying to scam and get money because one of them came into money. Yes, there was an episode where he had just skeezed his way in.
Good shit,
and dude, it was so good. And honestly, the Simpsons staff absolutely loved him. Unfortunately, before his death, Hartman actually expressed an interest in a live action film about Troy McClure.
Told you.
What could have been like Shadwick said, many of The Simpsons.
I got that in my 5 minutes of research today.
Dude.
So Leaf, you have something in here in our notes. I don't know if you guys have anything else you want to add to The Simpsons, but I think that, he did a lot of bit parts and stuff, but I didn't know this. You want to give the Futurama little nugget that you have there? Because obviously the people that wrote The Simpsons wrote Futurama. So there's a connection there, but go ahead, man. I did not know this.
So in and about 1998, I believe, when you guys correct me if I'm wrong on the years. When Futurama was being created, obviously Matt Groening from The Simpsons wanted to create a futuristic version sort of The Simpsons, sort of Jetsons-esque with The Simpsons humor, right? And there was a character, many of you, if you're fans of Futurama, known as Zap Brannigan.
Kiff, I'm headed to the men's room and I'll be needing an attendant, so, I'm sorry, you're crying like a woman.
A boorishly vain and sexist space captain. The role was originally written and auditioned by Phil Hartman. He actually auditioned for the role, and of course he nailed it.
Yeah.
And so,
you can totally hear it. You can totally hear Billy West's impression is Phil Hartman.
That's what's crazy about it. Like, Chris is 100% right that you can hear Billy West. And so Hartman auditioned for the role. He actually nailed it, and he had it. Zap Brannigan was his role. He was going to be that character in the show. And then his untimely death happened, and they gave the role to insanely good voiceover actor Billy West,
which it actually ended up being like the Billy West show. Futurama is he does so many voices on there.
It really did. Billy West became the standout voiceover actor on the show. He does multiple characters, from Zoidberg to Zap Brannigan to Fry to the majority of the characters. A lot of the characters. I wouldn't even say the majority, but he was quoted as saying part of his performance was in an homage to
that's awesome
to Phil Hartman and what he did and his voice acting career. I think that is one of the most beautiful things Like
that's really cool.
And Billy West does an exceptional job on the show. But
and
like Chris said,
as we start to wind down a little bit, let's touch on news radio. I know we didn't really watch it. There's some big names on there, but this is where he transitioned from SNL to news radio, and he was basically like the featured guy in this, right? So it was a leading role, and it was very successful from what I understand. It just 95, 98, I was looking for fucks and shits in my content at that point. So 15 to 18, I needed vulgarity and sex. So news radio was not delivering that. So I really wasn't on my radar. But I do want to talk about a movie that I watch every single year, and I'm always reminded, Jingle All the Way.
Ted?
Howard! Hey, buddy! How's it going out there? Everything okay?
Jingle All the Way.
We got to get out of here.
Jingle All the Way. Phil Hartman plays like the smarmy neighbor trying to like ease in on Arnold's wife like throughout this movie. The Turbo Man doll. That line I was talking about earlier.
Oh, Howard, excuse me, but your wife's cookies are out of this world.
Put that cookie down.
Like, this has nothing to do with Phil, but that movie, there's one line from Sinbad that gets me every year because, like you, I watch it one time a year.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. He's like,
that was really bomb. Just a sick world we're living in. Sick people.
Sick people. Yeah, that's Gibbs' favorite line too.
Well,
Gibbs is a big Sinbad guy. Yeah.
Hey, so going back to what I was saying earlier about him sounding like a 1950s character.
Mm-hmm.
In Discord, I just sent you guys a couple pictures of an actor named Robert Walker. He was in Strangers on a Train.
Okay.
I watched that recently for the first time, and the whole time I was watching, I was like, this dude fucking reminds me of somebody. You guys just take a look, and you can throw those images in if you want to.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, wow. Yeah, I definitely see that.
That's absolutely.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I see it.
That's wild, man. But so like Jingle All the Way is I'm reminded of Mr. Phil Hartman every single year when I watch that around. And he does such a great job in that, which kind of, goes to the whole, like, that was 96. I know he was in a couple other movies. I know he did cameos in a lot of the SNL movies. But like, you think like that dude was, how old was he when he passed away?
I believe he was in his early 50s.
So so he died in 98. So it's like he was 50.
Man, it was 98.
Yeah. And so like all the stuff like
longer.
Let me just say something. His impression of Joe Biden would have been fucking legendary. Fight me on it.
Yeah, dude.
Chat, dude. It would have been so
he would have
good.
nailed all of these throughout the years. He could have came back on SNL and all this
was
shit.
One of the, we didn't even mention it. He was one of the original people that did a Trump impression.
Oh yeah, that's right. That was in that compilation too.
It was in the compilation. We didn't mention he did it multiple times.
Young
Super
Trump.
young Trump.
Yeah, a young Donald Trump before, when he was just a real estate mogul who was extremely popular in New York City. Like
back when he told Larry King that he had bad breath.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You have very bad breath. Has anybody ever told you that?
You're comedic.
Let's start to wind this one down. This one's going to be a short episode this week because you guys fucking killed me last week with Fight Club. So, but what a bomb ass episode.
First rule.
First rule. I broke it. Gibbs said it's okay. Leaf, go ahead and wind us down with the end of the life and all that stuff, and then I'll have a question for you guys, and we'll end this.
Yeah. So we can't. I mean, we've obviously focused on the majority of it. If for those of you who are curious, if you don't know, you just you've heard of Phil Hartman. You've seen some of the things he's done. His personal life was more turbulent and sort of secretive than his professional life. He was married 3 times. His third marriage to Bryn Omdahl was deeply, deeply troubled, marred by her struggles with substance abuse and insecurity on jealousy. Let's just say the truth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
about his career.
She was a kind of a failed model, I guess. Wanted to be an actress, never hit. Then he
Shot to the moon.
Yeah,
he was extremely accomplished.
You would think, oh my God, I'm married to a star on SNL. You know, life's great. I'm so happy for him. Nah.
Well, there was one thing, and this is the only thing that I'll say about her, is on the one of the documentaries I watched on basically that was just on his death apparently. Anyway, it was talking about her. You know, they have the shot at the beginning of SNL where they're like Phil Hartman, and he like looks at the camera or whatever. She's in the shot with him, and you can see her earrings moving in that shot, and that's because she kept turning around because it's a side profile of her, and then Phil's, it's Phil's shot. She kept turning around, and they kept being like, "Stop turning around! Like this is Phil's shot." But she kept turning around. And so they ended up having to trick her, and that's why her earrings moving in that shot is because she had just turned around and turned back. Like, so little tidbit, you can see it when you see that thing. But
I know exactly the shot you're talking about.
Yeah, it's attention whore.
I mean, basically,
and apparently, Andy Dick, also had a problem with cocaine, and
which he self-admittedly,
and he kind of like. I think drew her back in, or he had some and she asked for it. Maybe whatever it was.
The story goes she was clean at some point in time. Phil Hartman's wife was clean, and she asked Andy Dick if he had any, and he gave her,
then like Jordan and Andy, one of the ones that like said some shit to Phil or to John Lovitz about Phil Hartman, and then John Lovitz beat the absolute fucking shit out of Andy Dick. Like
that's exactly.
I want to hear that story.
Yeah, so he said something about Phil Hartman being dead. I didn't know about that makes it even worse. I didn't know about the cocaine and the wife. He made some joke about like Phil Hartman being dead because I think Andy Dick was fucked up or whatever, and Lovitz, and then apparently Lovitz just beat the ever living shit out of him. So good on John Lovitz.
Yeah. Good on John Lovitz. So the thing with the cocaine was they were either at a party or they were hosting a party. I think they were hosting a party, and Andy Dick came over, and Brian and Andy locked themselves in a bathroom, and they were doing coke together. People were out there like banging on the door.
Yeah, because I know that sucks, man.
Yeah, and of course, Phil Hartman was absolutely livid about it to Andy and in this situation. Unfortunately, on May 28th, 1998. Like I was in like first year at college, guys.
Dude, I was about to graduate high school.
But I mean, Andy got his, just deserves because he was teaching a blowjob class and somebody popped off in his eye.
Stings, and that is now why I have a lazy eye.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, God may have taken Phil Hartman, but at least we left us Andy Dick.
He did.
Are we in hell? Are we actually in hell?
This is. I mean, you guys have been talking about the Mandela effect. Yeah. Come on, this is what.
Yeah, but put it back in the timeline where I had no responsibility and people were funny.
Same. Phil Hartman, of course, unfortunately, was tragically killed in his sleep by his wife Bren, who was reportedly under the influence of drugs and alcohol at the time. After an argument early that evening, Bren shot Hartman in their Encino home, California, and later, of course, took her own life. Phil Hartman is survived by 2 children.
Yeah, what happened to the kids?
We don't know. As far as I know,
they kind of stayed far away from all of this, which as they should. They were in the house when it happened too. So.
Yeah. Well, if you guys are watching this, reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you.
That's I mean, I'm sure you want to talk about it.
Yeah, they're like, cool.
To us.
About that. Yeah,
to us. Obviously, Phil Hartman's legacy far travels beyond his tragic death. That's all you're going to hear about. There's obviously more details about that, which you can look up. You're not going to find about it on this podcast. We talk about his comedic talent.
Yeah, man, that's what that's the whole purpose of this is, man, is the dude was a legend. The dude was an icon, and he was so extremely talented and super nice guy and all around. So, like, focus on the good of that,
Yeah.
Yes. He did in 2014 finally posthumously receive his Hollywood Walk of Fame star, cool. Cementing his place in entertainment history and as a legend of comedy as he deserves.
You think that meant a lot to him?
Yeah, I bet it did.
I have no doubt. Yeah.
So, guys, the question I want to ask on this one, and this is not SNL exclusive. If you had to pick your favorite role, impression, whatever, that Phil Hartman has ever done, which one would it be? I'll I think I'm going to start, and I'm going to agree with Gibbs just because it's the one that I loved so much, I guess, when I was younger, is the Caveman Lawyer, because the premise is so fucking absurd, and his voice being so well-spoken really brings that joke home. But Caveman Lawyer is going to be my pick. Shadwick, what do you got?
I'm going with a Jay Leno, Bill Clinton,
Yeah.
just because he hits so many of the stereotypical like facets of Bill Clinton.
Yeah,
like the party guy, the I'm so popular, nothing can touch me guy, and then also just like I said earlier, the way he would snap back from like partying to like really listening and paying attention, but his eyes were darting back and forth.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, it's just so good. Like, you're right. Leaf, bring us home, man.
Dude, I absolutely cannot get away from his portrayal of Frank Sinatra. And I know let me tell you why Frank Sinatra's family didn't like it. Because Frank Sinatra deep down was like a gangster wannabe gangster. Everybody fucking knows it. And Phil Hartman portrayed that. And again, I cannot.
Shut up. Yep.
If you could find the duet skit, it's one of the funniest SNL skits of all time. Fight me on it. It's not the one you're going to find on his compilation. Do
you have
so
it?
Good.
Like, can you send it to me?
I do not. I don't have it. And once
Sinbad O'Connor.
Dude, it is. Yeah, that's all the one we have, and that is sort of like a taste of what the duets is way funnier. It's
the bald chick. What's up with her hair?
Dude, he talks about fighting people.
Almost.
Like he has at one point in time, he has like, I don't know if it's Sting, if he brings back like Sting as Billy Idol again, but he has him. They like at one point in time, he has one of the washed up stars singing it, and he's like,
Okay, cut it, print it, and ship it. I'm buying that one.
He like cuts them off. I still say that to this very day, man. If someone goes on too long, I'm like, cut it, print it, ship it. I'm buying that one. Yeah. I'm out. And so he's like, bring them in 2 at a time. I'm tired. I gotta go. He's like, I gotta go. He starts bringing in the stars 2 at a time to record.
Is it Billy Idol? Every time he talks, he's like, can't understand anything.
No, it was
that was
his name from Two Live Crew.
Two Live Crew.
Oh, it's Chris Rock.
Yeah, it's Chris Rock. He's like, I can't understand it.
It is so funny because
I forgot he was in that skit for a second.
Frank Sinatra was an asshole by all metrics, and Phil Hartman nailed that. Obviously, that's not all of Frank Sinatra's life, but it was a funny roast. Phil Hartman destroyed that role. It was one of the funniest things he ever did. If you guys could find the duets skit, dude, find it. That role.
If we can find it, if we find it on YouTube, we will post it on our socials. So keep an eye out for that. But guys, with that, again, we just want to celebrate this dude's life, man. We've lost we've covered Farley, we've covered Carl Weathers, we've done some tribute episodes, James Earl Jones. We're all about laughs and all about love on this thing.
Let them
man.
wait.
Exactly. So with that, we'll take it over to our Norm Macdonald clip of the week.
According to the National Transportation Safety Board, sleepy truckers are responsible for 1,000 deaths a year. In second place, O.J. Simpson at 2 deaths a year.